but I started the WISP in 2006. I was an IT specialist. Was the computer guy for our county in our area, and started that in I think it was '97 when I was doing IT work, and sold my business to another company because IT was kind of going away. And so sold it, and they said, "You're not making any money." And I said, "Yeah, I know, that's why I sold it." And they said, "Okay, we'll find a way to make some money." And so started the WISP, and we grew that. And so eventually they sold that company off to NLBC. Again, NLBC is a 100 and started 118-year-old telephone company. But they had gone from like 3,000 people down to 3,000 customers in a rural area down to 400 telephone lines, and they were going to run out of business. So they started acquiring little WISP, and that's where I got brought into. So we're up to 3,200 clients now. We offer fiber, DSL, fixed wireless, linear TV, and VoIP, and we serve just in Eastern Indiana. Again, with our fiber, we use AdTrans systems. With our wireless, we use Ubiquiti, BioCells, and Microtech. Monitoring was with AdTran AOE and the Dude, air control, Cacti. Accounting system, I'm not fortunate like a lot of these guys. Our accounting system, because being an ILEC, you have government control of how you spend a lot of your money, and so we have to use this MAC, Mid-American Computer Corp, out of Omaha, Nebraska, and they basically give us no access to really any data other than what's on their interface. And so we had some serious challenges. A big one is the various network provisions. With some of these billing systems, it's very simple. You go through, you set it up, put the MAC address in, or whatever, and you provision them all right from there. The speed is controlled. Customer doesn't pay the bill. The system goes through and shuts them off. I had none of that. With our almost 2,000 wireless customers, every month when we had no pay disconnects, we logged into every single one and turned off an Ethernet port. Okay, and so. We set simple queues, but mostly we still set the queues on every Ubiquiti, every Microtech, all throughout the network. And so I was done with that. And so I was looking at, I knew I had some older Microtech towers that still was having really bad latency and a lot of issues. And so I got talking to JJ actually, and Matt and some of them, and it came down to that, you really need to look at Preseem. And so as we got looking at that, how do I control the Netflix and all those things to go through, and because everybody's complaining as soon as they got Netflix or Hulu, then everything died in their house and in my own house. I had 20 meg service to my house, and my girls, I got 4 daughters, and they get on their phones or whatever, and 3 of them are watching high definition YouTube and whatever else, and I couldn't do anything. And the day that and I'll just start with, we got the appliance, talked to Garrett and Arnie, and got the appliance, put it in. We start off in network monitor mode. You don't just turn it on right away. And you go through and look and see what's going on. You get a real idea of where things are, how much latencies and things like that. We ran for that for about a week and a half, and then they turned on the queuing, and all of our stuff runs through VLANs. And so I start picking this VLAN and this VLAN and this VLAN, and all of a sudden my latencies just dropped. You can visibly see that the day before. At my house on Friday night, that my latencies were running 185, 200 milliseconds, and the next day when they turn it on, they were at 80 and 90, very usable. And so that was the step that when we started deploying, turning another VLAN over and turning another VLAN over and doing different segments of our network. So where that helped us is we needed to centralize that shaping option, and so we turned a tower on with Preseem. We log into all the radios and turn all the shaping on the radios and all the cues off on the radios. And the calls go down. So you turn on another tower, do all that, and the calls go down. That was what we saw. The other thing that we really see is the visibility into it, and he showed you the one screen that had kind of the layout, but with someone who didn't really have a good layout to look at how every customer was doing, that is such a benefit. We see so many things that have transpired on our network since having the Preseem. We can answer things. Our general manager, I was telling guys last night, general manager called me up complaining last week because he's on our wireless, and he was complaining that his service sucked. I was like, you've got 25 meg service, everything's perfect. I could log into his radio, see the quality of everything was fine, and but his video issues were having some problems still. And with the Preseem, I was kind of shocked about that was the case. And so I immediately logged into the Preseem, looked at his radio, and for the past however long, he had been running a solid 25 meg. Solid, not up and down, solid 25 meg. And so I went in and changed his settings on his count, and gave him 100 meg, and it went up to 50 meg, and it was a solid 50 meg. And he started turning things off in his house, and come to find out that he had 3 TVs running YouTube TV, and he had one of his kids doing something else on thing, and his wife was running an Amazon Prime Video. And you don't know if you're got a nice laptop like this Dell here, and you're running Amazon Prime Video, it's running at 4K. It doesn't even ask you, it just turns it on at 4K. And so he was maximizing out, and again, it was a matter of he had so much video gone that it just couldn't do anymore. I mean, you run out of bandwidth eventually. So no matter how good Preseem is, eventually, if you got too much stuff buffering, you still run out of stuff. But I was able to show him that in seconds. And that's been the biggest thing, is giving my CSRs access to the Preseem. They can go in and look at a customer, see exactly what is going on, what kind of usage that they have. If they're having, if there's a tower that's having issues, they see that, and they can say, okay, I'll get a technician to look at the tower because I think the problem's at the tower. There's just, a lot of really great diagnostics that you can do with the system. But again, after we employed it and did it, we got a tremendous reduction in the amount of calls that we get, and a lot higher quality. 30-day appliance test like everybody else. We didn't have to manually shape for each PC or CPE at the tower anymore, and it was, again, very time consuming, and there was no reporting capable. It is very easy to operate, to find a client. Again, we don't have an active demo, but if there's a little search button up at the top, you type in name of customer, boom, they're up. You can click on them, see exactly what's going on, what their current past is. If you go to another area, it tells you what CPE they have, what AP they're on, everything about it, and all that history that he shows. So there is so much that, and then you can go through and say, okay, I want to see for this customer for the last week, last 2 weeks, 2 months ago, what are their usage changes, and so you have a bunch of historical. And again, like I said, my CSRs use it all the time to go through and know things. So the benefits, I'm able to let them see, my staff see what's going on. A lot of fewer truck rolls after we've deployed it, after we've used it, because everyone has the access to see what's going on and say, you're really overusing things, or you've got a Wi-Fi problem in your house. Let's bypass it, see what's going on. What do you get in? Well, I have no problem now that I bypassed my router. And we see that all the time. And you can see that. We had a weird one, and I don't know that Garrett even remembers this. We had a issue that we have a campground that we service. And campground wanted to go through and give everybody like a 1.5 meg access. So we have 25 meg to the campground, and put a microtik, and then at that time it's got all these queues set up for the IPs that it hands out, and shoots out through 900 megahertz throughout the whole entire campground, because it's solid trees, and then little hot spots all the way around the campground. Every weekend their service set at 200 millisecond latency constantly, and complain, and I talked to Garrett about it one day, and he's like, why do you have queues? What do you mean? He says, why do you have queues? He says, you're going to have all those people out there. You're limiting them all to 1.5 meg. I said, yeah, well, we don't want any one guy using up the whole entire bandwidth. And he's like, turn it off. Turn it off, give it a try, see what it does. I'm like, okay. I turned it off. I didn't hear anything from the owner then for a week. I called him up and said, what's the deal? He said, what do you mean? I said, you were calling me every weekend saying, I'm still having problems with this, it's not working. And I said, he says, nobody complained this weekend. He says, everybody loved it. I'm like, what? And it got looking at it, and the latencies were still up about 150 to 160 milliseconds. But I attributed that to bad signals of people's laptops trying to get through the metal siding of their RVs and those kinds of things. But by the time the end of summer, that guy had increased our service to where he was up to our 100 meg plan, and he had people watching video all the time, and we had the 100 meg setting on their service, and Preseem just handled it for and he said there's times there's up to 75 different trailers doing stuff, and maybe 200 people accessing it at a time. And so we just didn't see an issue. He asked the people not to watch videos all day long, but still some of them do, because a lot of times it was way up there in speeds. So the other nice thing that I wanted to bring up and about working with Preseem staff is that our first device was bad, bluntly. I have a bad device. It worked fine for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden it started falling down. All of a sudden it kind of paused, and then it would just lock up, and we'd have to pull the plug it back in, and everything come back up. And luckily we had a bypass around it. Whenever we did that, it would, OSPF go around it, and that had, but we had problems. And about the second time that I did that, I called him up and said, hey, what's up with this? Is this going to be normal? And Scott was like, no, let me get Dan. And so, we talked back and forth a little bit, and he's like, no, he says, look, they tried a couple updates and different things like that. And the next time it locked up, I called up Garrett and I said, hey, it did it again. He says, okay, I'm sending you another one. There wasn't a question. A couple days later, as soon as it got through customs, it showed up the door. I plugged it in, we programmed it, switched the cables over from one to the other, sent the old one back in. I don't get that out of a lot of our vendors. There was no fuss, no muss. They just replaced it, shipped it back, call tag. It was a good situation. So I've been very impressed with the Preseem system in all aspects for our network. It's been a godsend to help us have real insight into what we're doing and really control our customers in a better way.